I was supposed to have couples therapy with Ken on Friday, but they canceled because of the storm. So yeah, I mean, it's a parenting couples therapy. So it's called Rebirth. It's this place in New Orleans that offers like couples therapy, but it's like a parenting couples therapy type of thing. So, I figured I'm like, we're going through a lot, like with this pregnancy, I'm still going through the divorce. So I'm like, we're new parents. We're newly back together after a 5-year separation. And I'm like, I think that I'm very pro therapy, so I'm in individual therapy, and I'm like, why not let's do couples therapy?
Hi, friends. It's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. This is Thursday, September 12th, 2024. It's been a couple weeks since we've checked in with Gypsy Rose Blanchard, and I thought I would do a video that would follow up from a TikTok live I did last night. Last night on my TikTok, I went through some text messages that I had received from Gypsy back in May of 2024. And I started thinking about these text messages when I noticed that she has been spending a lot of time on her social media, utilizing people to do dirty work for her and using her friend Brianna Heinz to dox people and stalk people and pull up their information and really doing whatever she can to get information about people that critically speak about her. And she was on Bree's TikTok and she was talking about how she found it unfair that people are defining her as her crime and that she wants to be given a chance to prove to people she's not that person, all the while engaging in behavior that is questionable, not altruistic, and certainly not of someone that wants to change. She spends a lot of her time focused on the negativity of her situation, and she focuses on trying to debunk information about her that's not accurate. And trust me, there is a lot of information out there that's not accurate. Lots of conspiracies, lots of rumors, so many people that post things that aren't true. And then a lot of these rumors are literally originating from Gypsy or Christy because they're giving out information to people and those people are publishing it and it's a lie. And they're doing that to try to discredit people. I know this because I've seen them do it to people. Most recently, they've been having their eyes set on someone they've never liked. Her name is Natasha Cooper. She doesn't have a YouTube channel anymore. That's all I'm going to say. But there's a heavy push right now because obviously Gypsy is free and she has been enjoying her life. She has been profiting off of her notoriety and she has been skating by in her parole despite obvious signs of violations. So, one of her stipulations of her parole is that she is not supposed to have indirect or direct contact with Nicholas Godejohn. So, she has a specific requirement in her parole that states that she cannot speak to Nick directly or through a third party or send messages to Nick through a third party. There's a lot of ways she finds to get around this, but something that she has been doing that I can tell you about is coordinating with Nick's ex-girlfriends from prison. And I don't know what it's all very strange why she's so heavily invested in this man when she's pregnant, seemingly with her love of her life, who, by the way, she claims she's in therapy for with. She and Ken are in couples therapy because they really don't get along that well. He apparently feels trapped in this relationship, even though publicly he says Gypsy is the love of his life, and they need therapy to deal with all of the things that are going on, including her pregnancy, which I think has exacerbated her mood issues. She's been complaining about how she has a very hormonal and quick temper right now. And I also believe that the divorce and all of the drama that comes along with her is impacting them in a negative way. So they got back together in April. They're already back, they're already in couples therapy. This is a time when a relationship should really be in its honeymoon phase, and it's just not. She's already in therapy with him. So, one thing that consumes Gypsy is her case. When she was on Bree's TikTok, she was saying that she doesn't really pay attention to any of this. She wants to get offline and live in the real world. She was on Bree's TikTok literally talking about all of this drama. So she says things, but it doesn't come true. So one thing she does do is sends information to content creators. So it was May of 2024. I had wanted to try to cut ties with the family based on the behavior I was witnessing online and the fact that everything looked like it was very much profiting off of her notoriety. It didn't appear that she was interested in doing the advocacy work that she had told all of us she was going to do. Everything seemed to be about Gypsy and not about bettering herself. It all seemed about like a money grab. And that's how they kept me like reeled in for so long, is because they kept telling me that Gypsy was going to use her platform for good. And I haven't seen that yet. And she's been out for 9 months. So it was on May 25th on a Saturday that she sent me a message about a post that Nina had made where Nina was sharing text messages or DMs between her Ken Urker, between her current boyfriend Ken, and what Nina believed to be was actually Christy, but it was actually between Ken and Fancy, who is April Johns. So she said, "Girl, so Ken just called me, and apparently Nina is showing a text thread between Ken and someone threatening to sabotage Nick's appeals. Nina claims it's between Ken and Christy. No, he found the text and it's between him and Fancy." So she's sending me text messages or messages between Ken and April, and it's all about Nick. And basically, what these messages were, I'm not going to read them word for word, but she was telling Ken that she had her Dawn, who was Nick's planted girlfriend, they planted her basically, and that he was sending her threatening messages and that they were going to try to use these messages that he was sending to her to attempt to stop any possibility of an appeal. They wanted to somehow show to the prosecutors that he was still dangerous. Okay. And I said, "Oh, wow." And she told me it was from June of 2019. She showed me a text message directly from Ken, and Ken saying the content was apparently Fancy had gotten a hold of some email communi- co- conversations between Nick and I don't know who, and they were threatening multiple people's lives, but I never saw the email. This was from June 2019. And these emails have been widely discussed, and yet for some reason they don't exist. It's weird. It's almost like this didn't happen. And I said, "Is she intentionally?" And I was confused because I thought that Nina was intentionally leaving out April or Fancy's name. And she said, "Nina's claiming that Christy wrote these. She doesn't have the original text. It was altered." And then she sent me more. And she was telling him that she had emails from a secret source and that the person is working with our psych team to extract all the info about him. He's seriously sick, Ken, like scary sick. I can't reveal a whole lot yet because we're trying to protect our source, but it's super bad. I'm gathering all of this info and we're going to turn it over to the DA. At this point, Francesca Maselli, who goes by April Johns on the Good Wives Network, was working with the Blanchard family on a project. So she was intentionally inserting herself in a Nick's case to try to sabotage his case by provoking him in an attempt to stop his appeals. So I was asking her if she could just like have Ken screenshot them or do a video record of it. And she said that I said, "I think I saw something about these and the other person was not visible." And she said, "Exactly. So it's being put on Christy and it was Fancy. Makes so much sense. I knew Christy wouldn't say shit like that." And I said, "How did Nina get these? Nina is so messy." And she said, "It was sent to her from someone somewhere else. I remember seeing it before Nina did a video." And I said, "Okay." And then she shared a video of Nina talking about these messages. And so the whole thing was basically like Gypsy's family is intentionally interfering in Nick's case to try to stop him from getting appeals. And this is really disgusting. And frankly, it is. It is. It's like they planted Dawn in order to provoke Nick to say awful things to her. And then they were intentionally doing this to try to stop any effort of an appeal, which, by the way, you literally can't stop someone's appeal. they have a right under the law to an appeal. But it looks like people in Gypsy's life or connected to her at the time. April's definitely not on her side now, but she was definitely helping them back then. So she showed me the video of Nina, and I said, "Why is Fancy trying to intervene in his appeals?" And immediately she blamed April. But I'm 100% sure here, if I'm going to be honest, that April was doing all of this in the defense of Gypsy because she was literally working with the Blanchards on a project. Okay. The Blanchard signed a contract with April. They were going to produce something, a scripted series, an unscripted series. And this is what she said. This was back when Fancy was starting to become unhinged. She was talking to Dawn Boker, Nick's girlfriend at the time. Dawn claimed and sent her emails from Nick that Nick threatened to kill Dawn. So Fancy took Dawn's side. And I wanted to make sure Nick and they wanted to make sure Nick never got out of prison. And I said, "Did Nick actually threaten to unalive Dawn?" And she said, "I've never seen the emails, so I don't know. These emails have never been seen or never seen the light of days." So I said, "Okay, I don't remember this. I got into the mix in the fall of 2019." She said, "I emailed Dawn briefly in prison, and she told me how abusive Nick was to her. I don't have any of those anymore because all of my emails from prison are gone." So she's claiming that she has no reason, she has no idea why this happened, but then she's also in the same breath admitting to having communicated with Dawn because she wanted to talk to Dawn about Nick's behavior. Isn't this messy? Why is she communicating with his girlfriend? In prison, they weren't supposed to be talking, I'm just saying, and they're still not supposed to be talking to this day. And she said, "I don't have any of these anymore because all of the emails from prison are gone." And I said, did he date Dawn outside of prison?" And she said, "No, she wrote him while he was in prison." Okay. I said, "Okay." So then she sent me a picture of the girlfriend after Dawn who's never been identified. I deleted this photo so you don't have to see it, but it says, "This is the girlfriend after Dawn. She and I are actually friends on Facebook. They have been broken up for a while now." Why is Gypsy talking to Nick's ex-girlfriends? Why? She's supposed to be happy. She's at this point, love of her life is Ken. Why is she so obsessed with Nick? Is it that it's very important to her to control a narrative that he's the bad one and not her? And I said, "What was her experience like with Nick?" And she said, "That's Dawn." And then she shared Dawn's Facebook page with me, which again, I'm not going to share with you. I deleted those so that you don't see them. And she said, "Both said he was the same way with them as with me. He was controlling and violent. They came to me and apologized for not believing me." I kind of get the sense that they didn't come to Gypsy and apologize. I kind of get the feeling that they probably, Gypsy reached out to them. And then I talked about the master slave contract that they had. And I said, "Did you know his stepdad was an SO?" And she said, "This was Nick's girlfriend before me." Again, she sends me a third person's Facebook page. I didn't ask for Dawn's, the girlfriend after Dawn, or the girlfriend before Gypsy. She doxed these three women to me I've never shared their identities. Dawn has already been out publicly. She's been in videos on Fancy's channel. Like everyone knows that's been in the lore of this story who Dawn is. And I said, "She's the one that warned you." And I said, "No, she's not. That is another ex. I can't remember her name." Because remember, Gypsy said that one of Nick's ex-girlfriends told her that he was into BDSM and he was really weird and creepy, even though it came out at Nick's appeals that she was the one into BDSM and she did that with Dan. Remember? And I said, "It's weird that Fancy would be his biggest defender now, given that she knows he's violent." And she said, "Ken doesn't want to screen record it because it has the same text thread that he was talking shit on one of my old buddies." And I said, "I don't need that part. No, I only need that part, nothing more. I'll see if he'll change his mind." So why was she telling this to Ken in those text messages? Because way back then, Fancy wanted to keep in touch with Ken because he was dating me. I don't know. She felt comfortable enough to tell him all of this. Okay, then I did a video refuting what Nina said. I showed the proof that it was actually between Fancy and Ken, not Christy and Ken. Looking back, it doesn't matter because Fancy and Christy were speaking at that time. So later on that day, or the next day, after I made the post and she shared it, I was able to locate the video of Fancy interviewing Dawn, who was speaking about what Nick said to her. And I said, "I found these videos." And I said, "Nick sounds like a narcissist." And he said, "Was it her call logs?" And I said, "She's talking about Nick's demands." And she said, making her go into groups to start a freedom movement. Whoa. Yes, I think this smear campaign against you was started by him. It's not fancy. He sounds sadistic. So, freedom movement is really Nick trying to get help with his appeals and get people on his side to support him. And honestly, when I look at these messages, I don't know if Nick is the sadistic one or if it's like they're trying to make Nick look like the sadistic one and then Gypsy not, or if Nick's bad, I don't know. But she said he wasn't mentally well and I can't explain it, but it's like he has such a strong emotional hold on his girlfriends. He made us feel like no one else would love us, which is weird because I feel like that's what Gypsy does to her people that she's in love with. She does that to them. I feel like she has an emotional hold on people. I feel like she's the sadistic one. Now that I look back at all of this, I realize that Nick is not a well person, right? He did what he did. He's not mentally healthy if he did what he did. But at the same time, he's not the evil one or the only evil one in this situation. And why is Gypsy consumed by him still? Why would she need to speak to his ex girlfriends? Why does she want to validate her experience so badly? Is it because in the court of public opinion, people believe she manipulated Nick and she doesn't want anyone to think that happened? And so now she's trying to manipulate his ex girlfriends to believing that he was an evil monster just like her. Mind you, two of these women never met him in person. So I'm not sure how he could be violent or remotely controlling from prison. And then I said, he love bombed you. And she said he knew the right things to say to make us feel he loved us. And then Don had says in this video, he told Don that he would kill someone in prison if she didn't do something and it would be her fault. Okay. Nick is not the most well in the head. I don't know what Nick did or didn't do, but what I do know is that Gypsy has a hard time accepting responsibility and wants everyone to think that it was all Nick's idea. She was just manipulated by Nick, not Nick being manipulated by her, even though it was her idea. She bought she stole the weapon. She gave it to him along with gloves, sent money for him to go and come to Springfield, made it so that he could stay there overnight and then left with him afterwards. And they texted for days while this is all getting planned out. And they planned this for more than a year. This wasn't a heat of the moment type of situation, y'all. But she wants us to think that he manipulated her. And yet today, she's obsessed with Nick's ex-girlfriends because she wants everyone to believe that Nick is the bad one. I don't know if this would constitute her trying to get in touch with Nick, her trying to pass messages to Nick, but it definitely seems like she's hung up on Nick. And I think it's because she doesn't want Nick to win in the court of public opinion. I think she doesn't want Nick to have any support. I think she wants to hurt Nick as much as possible. I think she wants to make any attempt to discredit him and to make him look worse than he is. Nick made a huge, terrible choice by what he did to Dee Dee, okay? But Gypsy continues to hurt him by her smear campaign of him. All she has to do is leave Nick alone, and she won't. Because in some weird way, I feel like she believes that if people start listening to Nick and hear his voice and see what he says, she'll become less credible. And I think she's doing everything she can to control the narrative so he can't get another trial. So his appeals, which are all been denied at this point, the last thing he has left is the Supreme Court now. And then and then it's over. And then less after that is clemency. Gypsy wants to control this narrative. She doesn't want Nick to be free, but yet she says that she took two lives that night. If she really cared about her co-defendant and believes she messed him up, why then would she be trying to interfere in his life so much and make sure that he's never free? Isn't it weird when they both committed the crime together equally? She just didn't use the weapon. He was her weapon. What are your thoughts? Why is Gypsy so consumed by this? And has she violated her parole? I'm sure the parole board will say, nope, and Gypsy won't get in any trouble for it. Make sure to leave some comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. And please make sure to click on the bell for notifications. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed. Thank you all so much for watching. Bye, everyone.